So in case you couldn't tell from that cliffhanger ending of the last episode of Attack on Titan, the final season wasn't actually the final season. At least it was part 1 of the final season. Now we're actually going to get part 2 in winter 2022. So if you're anything like me and don't want to wait a whole year to find out what happens to Eren and the rest of the crew, then stay tuned as I'll review the remaining of the manga and also discuss and analyze the details in the series I'll call After the Anime. Obvious spoiler warning for those that want to wait. Don't watch this video, thumbs up and comment and all that good stuff before you leave. But to be honest, you'll probably still end up watching the anime even if you watch this video, won't you? I'm gonna start at chapter 115, though a lot of this chapter was in the last episode. There were scenes that were omitted and other events that were changed around chronologically. So we start out with Hanji and the Jaegerists, who are basically holding her hostage and escorting her when they hear an explosion of the thunder spear that was attached to the gut of Zeke. We cut to the aftermath of the destroyed cart itself and the 2 cart horses, one dead and the other dying. And this panel was kind of brutal. I really can't explain it, but I always wince on the inside when I see animals in pain or suffering in like media, anime, anywhere. Anyways, we flip to Zeke looking like a corpse, and this is the flashback of the time when he discusses with his mentor / surrogate father Tom Xavier about the plan to end all the conflict in the world. Long story short, they know that inheriting the founding titan for Zeke will never allow Zeke to actually use the powers, as he'll inherit the pacifism of the ancestral king. So instead, he needs to get in physical contact with somebody that has the founding titan, and then using him or her, they'll be able to enact their sterilization / euthanization plan, where they plan to have the founder sterilize all the subjects of Ymir. Then we see the events where he eats Tom and inherits the beast titan. I thought this scene actually played out better in the anime itself, but it wasn't bad in these panels. We flash forward a bit and we find the beast titan throwing some barrels at a few battleships and then finding Yelena. It was cool to see how Zeke was actually used in conventional warfare besides just throwing stones. And we also get some context about how Zeke used Yelena in his plans, how she ended up recruiting the soldiers from the Marlene conquest to their cause. I thought this was great, getting Yelena the character more fleshed out, because I had a lot of trouble during the anime figuring out who she was, and I didn't really get a lot of information about her. And I just didn't know what she was about or what was her story. I think they kind of skipped over this in the anime quite a bit. Then we see the conversation between Bertolt, Reiner, and Zeke, where they're debriefed, and Bertolt tells Zeke about Eren, the fact that he now possesses the founding titan, the basement of secrets, and the fact that Eren's father went missing, so he was potentially alive. We flip to Zeke having a sort of emotional breakdown as he tries to figure out what his father did and how he thinks that Eren was brainwashed. This gives us more context on why Zeke was always sympathetic towards Eren. Then we get a glimpse of Eren and Zeke's meeting back in Marley. Just take a look at how stone-faced and jaded Eren looks in this panel. I really don't think the anime did him justice in that scene. Moving on, we see Eren and Zeke talking about the plan to have Eldians euthanized, and we get a glimpse of why Eren would agree to this in the first place. Quick 2 panels show that Eren is getting a flashback of touching Historia, who has royal blood and activated his titan powers to be able to see Grisha turning into a titan and killing the royal family. Eren continues to explain that this was a necessary evil for it to happen in order to save the people within the walls and save himself. Then we see Eren continuing on to say that if they were never born, none of the suffering or deaths would have occurred. He communicates his wish to end the titan lineage and curse, thereby showing his willingness to go along with the plan of euthanizing and sterilizing all the Eldians. The 2 bros end up agreeing to the plan, and instead of Eren getting a handshake would have potentially set off the plan prematurely, Zeke ends up giving him the baseball that he used to play catch with to seal the deal. All this was a flashback, of course, so we end up getting flashbacks within flashbacks within flashbacks. I'm not really a huge fan of all this non-linear storytelling. I don't mind flashbacks once in a while, and I know that it fits with Ima's story since Eren's attack titan can transcend time within memories, but I would have liked some more chronologically linear storytelling. Either way, we're back to the present and we see Zeke lying down on the grass dying. Is it just me, or does he look a lot older in the manga? In the anime, he looks like he might be a decade younger compared to how he looks on the panels. Then we see a panel of this little girl. Then, like in the anime, the titan rips her guts out and puts him inside, kind of like in Empire Strikes Back when Luke hid inside that animal's carcass for warmth. We turn back to Paradise, and much of the events play out like in the anime, where we see the Jaegerists putting scarves around the arms of various military officials, and Yelena gloats a bit in front of Pixis and also spells out bits of their plans. Then we flash back to Hanji, and this was completely left out in the anime, and I imagine this will be in the following episode that comes up in 2022. Hanji and the party find the wreckage, and they find Levi all battered, and his face is mangled with shrapnel from the explosion. I was a bit dumbstruck seeing Levi in this state, since he's basically a cheat code in the story, but seeing him look so vulnerable and beat up was just pretty surprising. Obviously though, he's alive, though Hanji tries to tell the Jaegerists that he's dead when they talk about double tapping him. Luckily, the titan that was incubating Zeke blows up in steam, and we see Zeke emerge from the titan naked and completely restored, like he ate a handful of senzu beans or spent some time in a spa. He even looks younger in my opinion when he comes out. Hanji uses this distraction to jump in the river with Levi to get away. Floke asks Zeke what happened, and Zeke describes how the girl, who is now obviously Ymir, put him together like a sand sculpture in a place that's like the Titan's path nexus. Zeke then gets focused to find Eren and starts to march towards the next objective. We flip over to the scene with Gabby talking about Sasha's family while she's contemplating. This is the only part of this scene that's kind of different because we don't really get this flashback of Sasha's family. Otherwise, the meeting plays out the same. Eren tries to recruit Gabby to his plan in order to help Falco, but then Pieck interrupts the conversation. So that was the end of chapter 115, and chapter 116 starts with the conversation with Eren at gunpoint. Eren, just like in the anime, dares Pieck to pull the trigger, but she doesn't. She instead puts a gun down, and we flip over to the imprisoned scouts. It plays out the same as the anime, but we see them making tea beforehand, giving us the impression that the conditions of their imprisonment are actually nicer than what was portrayed in the anime. Otherwise, same deal. It's Armin and Mikasa explaining what happened during their meeting with Eren. Jean gives Armin the idea that maybe Eren is doing this for some purpose before Yelena interrupts. They berate the brother, Anya Capone, for being on Yelena's side, and one of the soldiers mentioned that they helped Paradis advance a whole century with their technology. This line wasn't in the anime either. The same dude starts to berate Niccolo, the Marlene chef, and talks about how Sasha was a whore that bewitched them, but then he's blasted in the head by Yelena, who then apologizes to the prisoners. She goes on to explain that Zeke's plan is gonna eliminate hatred. We flip back to Eren, and he's talking to Pieck, who tries to convince Eren that she's willing to join him since he can truly destroy Marley. She ends up tricking Gabby in the process before talking her down. Eren doesn't trust her, obviously, and makes her giving up the locations of the others. We go back to Yelena, and she explains Zeke's plan to euthanize all the Eldians by using the Founding Titan's power to render all the subjects of Ymir sterile, passing the Founding Titan to Historia's child, thereby eliminating the threat of Titans and creating world peace. But this plan never really made sense to me personally. First of all, how would the Eldians prove to the world that they're sterile? Marley wouldn't believe them even if it were true. The invasion would still happen, though after doing a mini rumbling that would convince them to stop the invasion. But wouldn't that just create a bigger arms race in the future? Anyways, this seems to convince Armin, or rather he's acting. It wasn't really clear to me, but then they're interrupted by hostile forces. Meanwhile, Gabby, Eren, and Pieck head to the roof while passing the soldiers, and we get a glimpse of Galliard in the crowd. Eren tells the two of them that Falco ingested the spinal fluid of Zeke, making him susceptible to the move which can turn him into a Titan. Pieck then asks Eren about Zeke's power and tries to provoke him as they get to the roof. Eren tells her to point out the location on the roof, and we get this cool power-up panel showing Eren getting ready to transform. I got sort of a Dragon Ball Z vibe from that. Pieck reassures Gabby before pointing to Eren, signifying her obvious betrayal. The floor of the roof collapses inward, and Eren's almost swallowed by the Jaw Titan. Look at the look on Eren's face. I wonder if that's actually shock or something else, or just pain. Everyone else is taken aback, and we get a clean look at Eren's legs that were chopped off. Then there's the cool Super Saiyan-esque transformation. It causes such a blast wave that the Jaw Titan, Galliard, has to shield Pieck and Gabby. And in the meantime, Pieck goes on to explain to Gabby that she never really betrayed Marley, though she has no love for Marley and doesn't trust the nation. She trusts the comrades, so she wouldn't fight against Marley. Seems pretty dumb to me, but I guess I wouldn't understand. I've never been in the armed forces. Then we get a beautiful panel showing the Zeppelins in the sky invading, and then a final page with Reiner and Eren sort of facing off. The cool one-liner in the anime where Eren shouts out a challenge is an anime edition, so we don't really get that here. It wouldn't make much sense either. So now we're all caught up with the anime. As far as the anime season in general, as I mentioned before, I didn't really like the non-linear storytelling. It's an effective tool for the audience to get intrigued and ask a lot of questions, but I feel like a lot of emotional payoff would have been greater if we got many of the events in chronological order, like if we saw the plans unfolding before the grand attack in Liberio. The attack on Liberio happens in episodes 5 and 6, but I think it would have been far more fitting to be the climax of the season, perhaps playing out in the last few episodes after appropriate foreshadowing and build-up. I know much of this is due to how the manga played out, and the anime was keeping true as an adaptation, but now we're left wondering why Eren is doing these things that he's doing, with more questions at the end of this half season. Like, why didn't Eren just get in touch with Zeke right then? What the hell was Eren doing in Liberia in the first place? Why did he suddenly leave on his own? Why did we get so many episodes spent in Marley? What's the point of introducing characters like Gabby, Falco, and Galliard? Much of this is answered in future chapters, but it has to be a difficult pill to swallow, that getting all these questions and now you have to wait another year to get these answered. Luckily, the manga is almost finished, and I'll be covering the future chapters in future videos, so stay tuned. However, we're not getting the season playing out like in the manga, as it's basically split into 2 parts, so I think it would have been nicer to have it play out differently in the anime. As far as the manga goes, I really liked how Yelena's role was fleshed out a bit more, and some of the events surrounding Zeke and his plan made more sense after reading this. I will cover the rest of the chapters leading up to the manga finale in future videos. For now, please like or dislike, comment. If you're going to mention anything with spoilers, please tag it as such beforehand, and subscribe for more. I'll have more reviews and analysis on later chapters very soon. Peace.